smarter to be on SportsGrid.
Taking over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast.
It's Ferrall Coast to Coast in the biggest way possible right here on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have you with us on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. Go for the two. Joe Lisi joins me momentarily. Of course, a lot to do today. It is NCAA tournament week. We start tonight with the first four in Dayton, so we have a couple of games to discuss. Of course, it starts for real on Thursday from noon all the way till past midnight Eastern. So we'll do a lot of NCAA tournament today. We do have some NBA tonight as well, some NHL tonight. Baseball starts tomorrow morning, believe it or not, for real, over in Korea with the Dodgers and the Padres. So plenty to do today as we get cooking here on Coast to Coast. We start, as always, with the birthday roll call. Let's go. Who do we got? Nico Collins at 25 today. Clayton Kershaw making the trip with the Dodgers over to Korea, 36. Ahmad Bradshaw, 38. Tyler Bozak, 38. Barry Cofield, 40. Hee-Sop Choi, 45. Antonio Daniels, 49. John Coppinger, 50. John Michaels, 51. Marty Moore, 53. Louis DeBrusque, 53. Rick Meyer at 54 today, the pride of South Bend. Tyrone Hill, 56. Vladimir Konstantinov, 57, and Andy Reid, 66 today for the big fella, Super Bowl champion coach, of course, with the Kansas City Chiefs. Get him a cheeseburger today, that is for sure. All right, we will kick things off, of course, with the NCAA tournament. We have a lot to do. We're going to go through all the games, but we'll start with tonight because it does begin tonight, the first four in Dayton, as we have a couple of matchups, of course, a couple 16 seeds, and then you have a few teams that will be playing to get on the 10 line. And before we get there, we welcome in all of our radio affiliates, Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. Go for the two. Joe Lisi joins me momentarily. SportsGrid Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 159, Sports Byline, and the mightier 1090 ESPN Radio in sunny Southern California. Great to have everybody with us here today. So, tournament in Dayton tonight does get underway. Wagner and Howard in the first game. We'll discuss that. We have, of course, Virginia and Colorado State in the nightcap. Both of those teams looking to get onto the 10 line. Virginia, as we know, discussed at length, probably the last team to get in to this tournament with their resume. A lot of teams left out, feel they should have been there before them. We'll have Tony Bennett talking about having experience in March. Bennett has experienced it all in the NCAA tournament, from winning it all to losing to a 16 seed. So he knows all about it. Nico Medved, the head coach of Colorado State. I like this guy. Talking about a quick turnaround playing here on Tuesday night in Dayton. A little bit of travel for them. So we'll give you the lines for both of those games tonight. Gabe Morency's with us every day on Coast to Coast. He'll be with us in hour number one as well. Our weekly chat with Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News. And as we know, Mike lives for this. He, of course, does the bracket all the time. We'll get his thoughts quickly on what he thought of it. And then I want to dive right in with Mike. I want to know who he likes in each region, which game he's looking forward to the most in which region, sleeper in each region. We'll try to get through as much as we can with Mike DeCourcy from the Sporting News in terms of the tournament here in hour number one. Hour two, me and Joe will go deep diving on these regions. East region with odds to win it. West region, odds to win it. Midwest, odds to win it. The South, odds to win it. We'll go through it all, see if we can find somebody in that middle tier here. Now, we can't just go all chalk. And you know I'm not going to let Joe do that either. All right, I go all chalk here. We got to find some teams right there in the middle that we think, like last year, you know I've been a big proponent of this. I've said it time and time again. I think last year started to turn the corner. Here in the NCAA tournament. I think you're going to see more 4s, 5s, 7s, 9s making the Final Four because the margins are very slim now. Between these 1 seeds and 4 seeds, the 4 seeds and the 10 seeds, there is not a lot that separate these teams with the portal and with NIL. And I think last year was the start of something where you will see some craziness, where at least 1 or 2 of these teams that you're probably not expecting are going to find themselves in Arizona in a few weeks. We will also go through a bunch of stuff. Popular spread bets so far. Who's going to the window the most? The most outright dogs being bet at the window. NCAA tournament teams, the best and worst against the spread throughout the regular season. How about Rick Barnes in the NCAA tournament? We know how he always does. Not very good. We'll give you those numbers. How about the coaches that actually are good in this field? We'll give you that too. Dogs in the 8-9 game. We have a few of them. The total in the Alabama-Charleston game in round number 1. Historic on many levels. We will discuss. Coach James Young will be with us for the lion's share in hour number 2 as well. He's got NBA plays tonight. Of course, we'll get his thoughts on the first 4 in Dayton as well. Davis Maddock, Fantasy Sports Today, is with us every day on Coast to Coast as well. We will talk to him about baseball, especially. There's a few things in baseball with him. Blake Snell finally did sign late last night. Goes to the San Francisco Giants. One of these 2-year deals is like the Boris Special, I guess, here this year. 2-year deal with the opt-out after the first. Same thing, basically, Chapman and Bellinger are going to be playing on as well. So a real good rotation for the Giants, who now, of course, are going to have Snell and Logan Webb, who finished 1-2 in that NL Cy Young a year ago. And baseball does start tomorrow morning. That's right. They're playing in Korea. The Dodgers and the Padres. I believe it's about 6 a.m. Eastern time is when that one is going to get going the next couple of mornings. So we'll have to take a look at that, too, with him. Hour number 3. I'm going to go through all the spreads for Thursday and Friday, see if anything has changed a little bit. There are a few that have, and I want to get Joe's thoughts, too, on what he thinks. He's already told me he's got some sizzle plays. Told me last night on the radio. Lots of sizzle plays here on Thursday and Friday in round number 1 of the NCAA tournament. We'll go through it all. There is NBA. A few things from last night. How's that Anthony Edwards dunk for the Timberwolves there? How's John Collins feeling this morning? Probably not very good in the T-Wolves win over the Jazz. Sixers beat the Heat, which was a very good win for them as they're jockeying for position there in those play-in spots in the East. You had the Lakers last night just tear up the Hawks in L.A. The Knicks beat the Warriors, too, in Golden State, but they got some bad news on OG Anunoby. Looks like he probably came back a little bit too soon. Elbows flaring up again. Not a good scene for them, but they still got the win over the Dubs at the Chase. Only 5 games tonight, including New Orleans and Brooklyn against the Nets, Dallas and San Antonio against Wembanyama and the crew. Denver is in Minnesota for the game of the night. Back-to-back for the Timberwolves. Very tricky as they have Denver coming in off of that loss on Sunday to the Mavs where they had the Kyrie game winner. So they'll try to get things going. I have NFL notes for Joe today as well. Chase Young, 1-year deal to the Saints. Jerry Jeudy, I just saw before we came on, a 3-year extension in Cleveland with the Browns after getting the trade there from Denver. Joe has not been with us since the Justin Fields trade to the Steelers, and he has loaded up. He basically moved the market on the AFC odds board after the Fields trade, running to the window to bet the Steelers. And Jaden Daniels now the, no doubt about it, favorite for the number 2 pick, which Joe's very happy about too. So we have a lot to do today. Lots of NCAA tournament action. We have NHL and NBA tonight as well. Some baseball too with it starting tomorrow morning. Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. Joe joins me next. We're back on the grid right after this.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance.
That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
Unlike the last one, I don't think these managers are going to sign up for a 1-1 draw. I think the Spurs know they need to win this one. They need the full 3 points to try to get into Champions League position.
But generally speaking, I find Klopp and Liverpool's approach to be much more effective, which is you disrupt those patterns of play, you get in the middle of those triangles, and you put them on the back foot.
Pro League Soccer, powered by Marca. Only on SportsGrid.
Hunter Dickinson and Kevin McCullough Jr. are not going to be fully healthy for the NCAA tournament. I think KU might be in danger of a very early round of 64 exit in the big dance.
They're playing really good. That
atmosphere before a game. I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
Oh, what's up? You watching the game? Or maybe the one later? Put a little BetMGM action on it, and now any game becomes the game. When you got overs and unders, you're in it every time they throw the ball, kick the ball, dribble the ball. Maybe it's not even a ball. Who needs a ball? Now that bet's got you watching every inning, half, round, period, set, hole, a lap. Right from the edge of your seat. Hit them with the promo.
And we are back for El Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty. We'll get Joe in a moment. First, of course, we have to let you know, BetMGM, they're giving away free money in North Carolina. Welcome to the party, North Carolina. How about that? Place your first BetMGM Sportsbook wager through the BetMGM Sportsbook mobile app for at least $5, and you will receive $150 instantly in additional winnings, regardless of your wager's outcome. Just download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android, or visit BetMGM.com. Sign up and deposit at least $5 into your newly created account. For all you people down in North Carolina, make it happen. Place a wager in the amount of at least $5 at standard odds price. Once you've placed a bet, you will receive $150 in bonus bets, regardless of the outcome of your wager. Use bonus code GRID. GRID, GRID, bonus code GRID at BetMGM to go and get involved. It's tournament week. What better time to go ahead and do that? All right, every Tuesday and Wednesday here on Coast to Coast, you get the extended version of the very popular SportsGrid radio show, Carver and Lisi, which airs weeknights at 8 p.m. East with myself and the encyclopedia of, I guess, this week, college basketball. The one, the only, go for the two, Joe Lisi. Hi, Joe. How you doing?
Hi, Carver. This is my time of the year, baby. A little grit, a little elbow grease, body English. This is what gets it done as it relates to the NCAA tournament. I thought you said the promo code was GRIT, G-R-I-T. I thought you were talking about me. No. It's GRID, promo code GRIT. Don't forget it. I use a little body English, though.
That you're a pro. You would be grit, absolutely, and you're looking for a lot of that this week, Joe. As you looked at the bracket for the first time, who's got the grit? Joe does not like teams, that basically don't have a little bit of elbow grease in them. He doesn't want teams playing so fast and loose. He wants teams that are going to dig in and be tough here around the net as we get ready for this weekend, Joe. That's what you're all about.
Oh, absolutely, Carver. And I said it to you on the radio, and I'm sticking to my guns. You know the chalk, the top four teams, UConn, Houston, we talk about Purdue. I think they're all frauds outside of UConn, the top four. And I know Houston punched above their weight. They're frauds. They punched above their weight. Kelvin Sampson did a fantastic job in terms of leading their team during the regular season as it related to the Big 12. But now it's tournament time. You got to kick it up. You got to bang the boards, and that's what Houston does. But did they expend too much energy in the regular season? Only time will tell. If we're talking usual suspects and top four, the only one that would get my money is UConn because they did it last year. We do have some diamonds in the rough, though.
No, we certainly do, Joe, and we're going to dive into all of that today. We're going to look at all the regions, of course. I've got odds for you in each region to make it to the Final Four. So I think that that's something that we're going to look at today. Try to find some of those teams in the middle that you're talking about. Get away from the chalk maybe at the top and see if we can find some of them that can make their way into Glendale in a few weeks for the Final Four. But I don't disagree with you about UConn. They are going to be very tough. I honestly think, it seemed like UConn, Houston, and Purdue were like on that top plane, Joe, coming into this. But I think that that's kind of changed now. I think that UConn has separated a little bit to where they might be on their own level at the top. And then those other teams are coming in at that next level, that little small cut right below them, Joe. So this is going to be a very interesting week, that's for sure. And it does start tonight, the first four in Dayton. I've loved, Joe, since they've started this. I think it's a great opportunity for some of these small schools as well, these 16 seeds that get themselves a spot on kind of national TV to show their stuff. And we'll talk about those first. But the main event is the second game of the night, which is the play-in seeds for the 10 spot, which are Virginia and Colorado State. A lot was made about Virginia, Joe, probably one of the last couple teams in. Everybody has all their computer rankings matched up with them, saying they don't belong, and my team does. Well, doesn't matter now. It's time to put the ball on the floor, and Tony Bennett and the Cavaliers will be there tonight in Dayton. Bennett has seen it all. Won a national championship, has lost to a 16 seed in the first round. How about experience in March, Coach?
It's just one of those deals where you prepare as well as you can. And I think even more this year, last year, the quality of teams because of, the transfer rule and, even at the extra year, you can kind of fix your team quick. I think the quality of the game is as good as it's been.
You're starting to lay the groundwork for a one and done.
You know that you're going to have to execute. You're going to have to do things. The conference tournament kind of prepares you for that.
Oh, come on.
But you're thankful for the opportunity, excited, but you rely on your experiences. And I just said kind of in my opening statement, we only had one player that had played at Duke when we went there, and only a couple of our guys had played in
Tony,
so
won a
you never know.
national
Sometimes
championship
that
not too long ago.
inexperience can be positive. You step into it, but you embrace the challenge.
Not with these guys, he hasn't, Joe. Not with these guys.
Carver, we talked about this last night. You know it as well as anybody. The coaches knew what was on the horizon. Either you're ahead of the curve or you get your ass out of Dodge and find somebody else that could do it. We talk about college football. Dan Lanning, Lane Kiffin get it. They understand how to recruit and how to really make way with the transfer rule and NIL. If these college basketball coaches don't know how to fix it, then get out and let somebody else do the job.
You're right. And look, the portal, me and you had a long discussion about that last night on the radio, about how these teams are not going to the NIT and yada, 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 Joe. That stuff's on the back burner for me now. It's time. Here's the one thing that, and I do like Colorado State when we put the numbers up here in a moment, but there is one thing, Joe. Usually the team that everyone says doesn't belong, why are they here? Why are they in the tournament? Usually that team pays the committee off and wins a game or two and kind of validates their existence in this thing. And I have a feeling, Joe, as the morning's gone on, I'm starting to waver a little bit and lean towards the Virginia side. I think that they might win this game tonight and actually do that for the committee.
Okay, you're gutless because we talked last night and we talked about Colorado State, and I'm sticking to my guns. Here's why I like Colorado State. I talked about this to you last night. If this was beginning of February, right? Maybe second week on a neutral court, Virginia most likely would be favored, right? We talked about the Mountain West teams last year, 5 of them, one and done. They didn't step up, and it was San Diego State that actually erased all the negativity. We know about the conference tournament, how the Mountain West never steps up. Yeah, Colorado State is a 2.5 point favorite, right? Forget Tony Bennett. Forget the ACC for a second. Why is Virginia 2.5 point dogs? And why is Virginia 15-1, Carver? 15-1 to make it to the Sweet 16 when a team like Michigan State is only plus 290. Okay? That number doesn't add up. You know why? Because the book is telling you that there's no shot Virginia gets to the Sweet 16. They're going to be the darling that everybody bets. I'm taking the Rams, blowout city. They somehow get it done tonight.
Now, look, aside from San Diego State last year, which made it all the way to the national championship game, the Mountain West in this tournament over the last 5 to 10 years, super underwhelming, Joe. A lot of bids and a lot of immediate losses. And that also gives me a little pause tonight.
They're over a bucket to Virginia and Tony Bennett.
Yeah.
Shocking.
Look,
lay it.
We will give you the numbers later on, Joe. That's for sure. Ferrall Coast to Coast on a Tuesday. Carver, Ryan, Joe for Scotty. We're back on the grid right after this.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the movie that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance.
That is a team I'm betting on right now. We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
You can worry about Kentucky's maturity. I get it. Are you making a good point about it? Absolutely. They're young. They're inexperienced. They're going to make a ton of mistakes. Sometimes you can worry about their defensive tenacity. But boy, they got shot creators and they got shot makers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Morehead State and Indiana State are two great mid-majors that look very dangerous. And Bama sent those teams into outer space.
You're looking at a guy that resurrects programs. Iona was down in the dumps till Pitino got there. Now you know who Iona is because they were making runs into the NCAA tournament. And now you take a look at St. John's down in the dumps here, resurrecting another New York City team here.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Ferrall Coast to Coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort of
Night.
has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And we are back from Coast to Coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us every day. We have Gabe Morency with us, Sports Rage, late night, 10 p.m. East, right here on the grid. We have a lot to do. We have first 4 games tonight. There's NBA, there's NHL, and as you'll see with Gabe here, baseball does start tomorrow morning on the East Coast, 6 a.m., 3 in the morning out in the West Coast. I don't think, I saw Gabe tweet about this. It's kind of under the radar because everything's going on with the tournament. But there are baseball games that count coming up in the morning, Gabe. And I know you're excited for them just like I am. Good to see you.
Yeah, 3 in the morning, West Coast time, Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. For those of you on the East Coast. But we've got a 2-game set. And although most books do have in-season props, right? I mean, they don't get pulled for the eternity after game 1. But with that being stated, if you're betting Ohtani's home run props on the season, if you're betting anything with Mookie Betts, you're betting any put it this way, any player props with players on the Dodgers and or San Diego, you got to get your bets in, right? You got to get, like, a good example is I love Freddie Freeman this year to lead Major League Baseball with the most doubles. And it's plus 400. 3 of the last 4 years, he's had the most doubles, and pretty convincingly as well, actually. 4 of the last 8 years, but specifically 3 of the last 4. You're not going to be able to pitch around him. He's got Mookie Betts and Shohei Ohtani batting before him, right? And he's got Will Smith coming up after him. So pitchers are going to be in a tough spot to decide, what do I do? I don't want to throw the ball to Ohtani here very much, but I got Freeman on deck. Freeman, smooth Freddie. He's like Freddie Couples, right? I mean, remember, Freddie Couples used to be known for his smooth swing. That's what Freddie Freeman does. Rinse and repeat, double, double, double. So plus 400. So a bet like that won't be on the board anymore. So I'm just warning people that, yeah, it starts at 6 a.m., and I doubt a lot of you are getting up. So you better get your bets in tonight. And speaking of which, so it's Ohtani's debut. He's taken over Korea, obviously. And it's interesting because anybody that knows geopolitics at all knows Korea and Japan, they don't like each other, all right? Like more than Michigan and Ohio State don't. Specifically, Korea hates Japan. They were colonized years ago in the old, like, ancient, Asian wars and stuff like this with the emperors and all that. There's a lot of bad blood, and there's a big debate in Korea now whether it's okay that Ohtani's the most popular player in Korea because he's not Korean. But Ohtani's that popular, so, like, this is just lit over there. It's like the hottest ticket ever. You have Ohtani's debut. Yu Darvish is actually pitching for San Diego, his Japanese teammate on the national team that won the World Championship. They've never faced off against each other. But one thing you know, Carver, and anybody that knows, Yu Darvish is a great pitcher, but what's his one thing that he does? He gives up home runs, right? Yu Darvish can go 6 innings and give up 3 runs and 3 solo shots. So how do you not take Ohtani to hit a home run in his Dodger debut? It's plus 240. And, if he doesn't get it tonight, he gets it tomorrow. It's a 2-game set. Musgrove pitches for San Diego tomorrow. But I'm going to be on Ohtani to go deep in his debut this evening. Glasnow looked amazing, all right, in spring training. His last 2 starts, like, money stuff. Like he just went on cycle against San Francisco 5-6 days ago. And if you recall, he went like 6 innings, 8 strikeouts, no runs allowed. He's dialed in. His strikeout prop is 6.5. My only concern is how long. Glasnow, we all know, he's never pitched more than 120 innings before. So if you're the Dodgers, you don't want to kill this guy just because he looks good in the first start. With that being stated, I still think he can get to 7 strikeouts. I'm expecting Darvish and Glasnow to be ahead of the hitters tonight, Carver. I don't think there's going to be a ton of runs in the game.
Yeah, I don't. Here's the one thing I'll say. I was looking at some info on the stadium, Gabe, that they're playing in Korea. It's a bit of a bandbox, honestly. Like, it's only 325 down both of the lines. It's 401 or 402 to straightaway center. I kind of like the over, and I love the Ohtani homer. I got it this morning at plus 285.
Well, I'm not going to play the under. It's 8.5. There's no way in hell I'm playing any under with a Dodger game with 8.5. These guys could put up 8 runs on their own in an inning.
I don't think it's going to get to the levels like we've seen in some of these other international games with weirder dimensions, the Mexico game, the London games,
No,
etc.
it's not like London and stuff like that. No.
But it's a smaller park indoors, and I think homers, like you said.
Well, what's Yankee Stadium? It's essentially Yankee Stadium, isn't it? What's Yankee Stadium down the porch? 330?
To right field, yeah. It's about the same as but not in left. It seems like both sides are at the same there with the 325.
There's going to be a couple of home runs tonight, bro. Point blank.
Yes.
That's baseball now, though, right? Same with Glasnow.
Yeah.
Glasnow might look good, and Tatis might just put one in the fifth deck. Like, you know what I'm saying? That's the way baseball
works. I think you're right
works
about
now.
this, though. I think you play Ohtani to homer both days, even if he gets only one. If you're getting in the plus
You didn't
240
lose money,
to
at
plus
least.
2 area everywhere, you're probably going to come out a little ahead because I think he's going to leave that place with at least one homer over the next couple of days. So I think, Gabe, that might be a pretty safe way to go about it here. And I'm sure you're staying up for it tonight. I don't have to probably ask that. I'm sure you're going to watch a little bit of it, even though it's 3 o'clock in the morning for you. I'm sure you're going to catch a little bit of it after sports radio.
You know,
a little bit.
It's funny because I usually don't go to bed until I sort of, I mix it up. Sometimes I'll watch Cannon, which comes on at 3 a.m. on MeTV. But when Cannon comes on after Mannix, Carver, I kind of know it's getting late. Yeah. So, so I'm like, all right, man, I better shut this down. So, like, when the 4 a.m., like, I'm on the West Coast, so when I see the morning news start popping, I'm like, oh, man, the Today Show started, on the East Coast. I better shut it down.
Time.
So, the thing is, and this is sort of an in-betweener for me, right? It starts at 3, it's going to go to 5:30.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to do. I might record it. It's sort of like F1 races, bro. That's my new thing now. The F1 races are like 5 in the morning for me, 5:30. So oftentimes I just record it, wake up, but I can't lie. Sometimes I just fast forward it to like 20 minutes left in the race.
To wake up with winning tickets either. You wake up and bang, look at the account. Oh, look at this.
Well, I'll be up for it. I'll be all fired up tonight. I'll be up for it.
We do have, of course, the NCAA tournament starting tonight. First 4 in Dayton. We have 2 games. Of course, you have the 16s with Wagner and Howard, and then Virginia and Colorado State, which will be the game that everybody has their main focus on tonight, especially with Virginia catching 2.5 here against the Rams from the Mountain West.
Yeah, I'm fired up for this. I like the fact, once again, speaking of East Coast, West Coast times, that, this is at 3:30 for us, basically. A little after 3:30, this thing's tipping off. So we're just literally hours away from the start of the tournament right now. And so you got Wagner and Howard. Wagner, the Seahawks, are one of these teams that caught lightning in a bottle late. They had a losing record. They were terrible this year, and they somehow won their conference tournament, and here they are right now. So we can't argue their hotness, but at the same point in time, the Northeastern Conference is terrible, right? I mean, it's arguably one of the worst, if not the worst, representation. There's a reason why they're playing in this game. You look at Howard. The thing I like to hang my hat on is who's the best player on the court? Is there a player that can sort of carry that's better than everybody else? And in this instance, there is. All right, Bryce Harris of Howard, kid scores nearly 17 points a game, Mike. Very consistent. He's that guard guy. He can just take it to the rack for them. He's got the ball. And to me, it's a difference maker. Not to mention, Howard they're actually a team with a winning record, right? Howard, they're not great, but they had a winning conference record. They had a winning record overall on the season. I think Howard, Wagner can't shoot. All right, Wagner really cannot shoot the basketball. So I've said this before, though. I remember there was a team. They said they were the worst 3-point shooting team in the history of the NCAA tournament. Carver. They played in the play-in. They went like 9 for 11 from 3 in the first half. Okay, so it's like the game of their life in the tournament somehow. So you always got to be a little bit careful of this. But with that being stated, I do like Howard. I'm betting on Howard. And then Colorado State, Virginia. Obviously, it's an interesting game to watch, but it's an extremely tricky game to handicap. But with all of Virginia's flaws, the thing is, Carver, teams in the ACC, they see Virginia. So they're used to playing Virginia. This is why I think Grand Canyon are going to have a problem with St. Mary's. Like, teams that play slow and grind it out are frustrating to play against. It's like playing a military team in football. You've got to be used to it, to have the patience to deal with it. Colorado State, they're not going to be able to deal with this well. And one of the ways that you beat Virginia is you shoot the 3-point shot well. You've got to be a good shooting team to beat Virginia from the outside. Colorado State are not, bro. They're not a great three-point shooting team. They hit 34%. They were better earlier in the year. Colorado State have kind of faded as the year has gone on, to be honest. Every year we hear about how good the Mountain West is all the time, and then they get in the tournament and they get waxed, all right, with the exception of San Diego State. I should say there's always one Mountain West team that goes on a run. But for the most part, I just think that Virginia's defense is going to be too much for Colorado State tonight. Not to mention the travel, Mike. Colorado State were in Vegas all week. They go back home to Fort Collins. Now, boom, you got to fly to the Midwest. And Colorado State players never travel as far for a game. Virginia, dude, they played in Washington, D.C., Mike. They could have skateboarded to the arena here tonight if they wanted to.
No, and look, it is very hard when you don't see the way Virginia plays all the time. To suddenly get that thrown in your face is very difficult, and the Mountain West history, I think, plays into it. I got 30 seconds, Gabe. There's like 13 or 14 hockey games tonight, a couple good ones. You got anything quickly?
Well, these games are really starting to matter right now. I don't believe that the Buffalo Sabres are going to be able to go back-to-back after what they did last night. Look for Vancouver, an angry Vancouver team to get it done tonight. Lay the goal and a half.
Gabe, we'll see you tonight. Sports Rage late night, 10 p.m. East, during
Let's go, Howard.
Virginia, Colorado State tonight when you get going. Tonight,
go
10 p.m. East on the grid.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
You can worry about Kentucky's maturity. I get it. Are you making a good point about it? Absolutely. They're young. They're inexperienced. They're going to make a ton of mistakes. Sometimes you can worry about their defensive tenacity. But boy, they got shot creators and they got shot makers.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Morehead State and Indiana State are two great mid-majors that look very dangerous. And Bama sent those teams into outer space.
You're looking at a guy that resurrects programs. Iona was down in the dumps till Pitino got there. Now you know who Iona is because they were making runs into the NCAA tournament. And now you take a look at St. John's down in the dumps here, resurrecting another New York City team here.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Ferrall coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live. Prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage late
sort
night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And we are back from coast to coast here on a Tuesday. Carver High in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us every week. It is great to have Mike DeCourcy with us from the Sporting News as we get ready. The NCAA tournament starts tonight. First four in Dayton, Wagner, Howard, Colorado State, and Virginia, who, Mike, of course, we're going to start with because we're going to get Mike's picks here. Every region, who he thinks is going to make the Final Four, the whole deal, Mike. But I have to start with the committee, as always, because you got to talk about it a little bit. I know people get mad, Mike, about the bubble and who gets in and who gets out and the Big East got screwed and this and that. I thought this year, Mike, it's a little bit harder to do that because the committee didn't sit down at the beginning of last week and go, you know what? We're going to have 5 teams win their conference tournaments that we had no idea that was going to happen. NC State, Oregon, Duquesne, etc. That's a tough spot for them to wedge those teams in after that.
It is. It doesn't stop anybody from complaining, Mike. And to me, the thing that rings most hollow about all those complaints is Joe Lunardi's on television. I'm on television. Jerry Palm is on television on the major networks that cover college basketball. And we're telling you what's going to happen. We're saying, here is what's going to happen. And then the bracket is up there, and we told you it was going to happen. And you're still like, how did that happen? Well, why would you be surprised? If the weatherman says there's going to be rain, and you see the weather report, and it rains, and you're shocked, then it's on you. And so if you're not paying attention to what is being instructed to you by people who are living in this space for 3 to 4, and in Joe's case, 12 months a year, I wouldn't want to be doing those brackets in April. I'm sorry. When you are living in that space, we've all studied this, and we all have varying degrees of efficacy from year to year. But Joe got 67 out of 68. I got 67 out of 68. Almost everybody that does an online bracket got at least 66. There's no shocks. The only shock was the continuing accident, so to speak, that was the bid steal situation. But if you paid attention to what we did, we told you these are the first 4 out. When the bid steals happen, that wipes them all out. These are the last 4 in. When the bid steal happens, that wipes them all out. So there was nothing shocking about the presence of teams in the field. The Virginia selection was surprising because most of the bracket analysts were projecting Oklahoma or someone else. Virginia was fairly low on that list, but they were on that list. So even their inclusion can't be viewed as a total surprise. And there were some really very curious seedings. And so I'm open to gripes about that.
I have a bigger problem with that, Mike, to be quite honest with you. Me and Scotty were talking about it yesterday. Like, it almost feels like conference championship week in some aspects doesn't matter. Like, I think Bruce Pearl has a point. Like, Auburn wins the SEC title, the tournament, and there's still a 4. It just didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Well, that one does make sense. That one does make sense, and it's very easily explained. Auburn all year was really good at beating light heavyweights or middleweights, but you put them in the ring with a heavyweight, and it's oh no. And if the game was played in Auburn, yeah, they had a great chance at that. But if it was played on a neutral floor or the road, forget about it. They were not winning that game. That's why even now, as the number 5 overall net team, and I think right around there in Ken Palm, they've still got 2 quad 1 wins. And that's why you're a 4 seed. It's again, Bruce, if you want to know, then you know. This is what I believe, Mike. I believe that there are certain things in politics that politicians don't want to resolve. They want to complain about. They want to get elected by complaining about them. And that's what coaches want to do. They want to have something to complain about rather than to be able to say, you know what? I read all the metrics and they're right. We didn't get it done. No one wants to say that.
Also hard to bellyache that you're getting shipped out to Spokane when you got to play the number 1 seed Houston in your backyard last year as a 9 seed. That makes it very difficult for me also to listen to Bruce bellyache a little bit. All right, Mike, let's do it. All 4 regions, Tell me who you got going to the Final Four and a game in the first round that you have your eye on. You think it's going to be an outstanding game or an intriguing matchup, whatever it is. Let's start in the East.
Okay, well, that's the easiest selection I had, which was UConn to win the region without a doubt. Beyond that, the most intriguing first-round matchup to me is Auburn and Yale. I have Auburn winning the game, but Yale was they weren't the best Ivy League team, and they certainly needed some help to get over the finish line in the championship game against Brown. But I'm curious in the disparity in style of play and what that might do relative to the result.
In that anybody, so really for me, I'm with you. UConn's the only one seed that I have making it to the Final Four. You don't see any sleeper potential there. I think it's tough. Like I think Iowa State could have a hard time with some of those teams on the bottom side of their bracket. Even maybe Drake. I love Drake, Mike. I think Drake could be that team like last year, that FAU-type team that makes a little bit of a run.
I have Drake winning their first game for sure. I certainly think they're going to be competitive with Iowa State. I think Illinois is capable of winning every game they play up until the Final Four, but they also are capable of not defending at the level necessary to win after, say, they could lose to BYU, certainly. There's no reason why they should lose to Moorhead, but I could see them certainly losing to BYU if they don't ratchet up the defense a little bit.
In the South region, Houston is the 1 seed, of course, after getting destroyed by Iowa State in that Big 12 title game on Saturday. You have Marquette as the 2 here. Looks like Kolek's going to be all right. Duke's in this region, Texas Tech, Wisconsin against James Madison. First, who do you got coming out?
Well, it's interesting that you use the word all right relative to Tyler Kolek. We're not looking for all right, are we, Mike? We're looking for Tyler Kolek to be elite. And that's the problem. Can he be after missing this much time and then having to go right back into the NCAA tournament? It's not the same situation as Kyrie Irving in 2011 when he missed basically 3 months and then they tried to sort of force him back into the rotation and it didn't work. Ultimately, I don't think it's like that. They know what Tyler is. They've had him run their show for 3 solid years. But there is that little rhythm thing that might be missing, and there's the possibility that he will be diminished. We don't know. I mean, I've been doing this sport for 35 years or more. I can't remember covering an oblique injury. I think that happens in the NFL from time to time, but I don't ever remember seeing that. So I don't know how basketball players recover from that. So worried about that. If they came all the way down the stretch with Tyler intact, they still would have been a 2 seed. They still would have been in this region. So nothing would have changed. And I'd feel way better about them getting out. I'd probably have picked them. Instead, I picked Kentucky, just believing in the offense, perhaps being able to overwhelm the other high-end seeds in this region. I don't love Houston's offense. And I thought that Kentucky might be able to score enough to outlast an offense that isn't really proficient. If Kentucky's defense gives up 90 to Houston, they just ought to pack it in, man. Because you can't hold that bunch to fewer than 90. Then defense is not for you.
Any upset there in that region in the first round? Intriguing matchup.
Yeah, I have James Madison taking out Wisconsin in the first round. One of the things that leads to those upsets is the misseeded team. And James Madison was at least an 11. And that's not a lot of lines, but if Wisconsin didn't have to, if James Madison were an 11 instead of 12, Wisconsin wouldn't be playing them. Wisconsin should be playing Duquesne. And I think, they would never admit it now, but I think in the playing the truth serum game, they would much rather have played Duquesne than James Madison.
In the Midwest, Mike, Purdue is the number 1. You have Tennessee as the 2. 2 teams that, of course, the stigma's there. 2 teams that have not gotten it done in the tournament, both as the 1 and the 2 seed. Who do you like?
I like Tennessee. I'd like to love them, but the way they played against Mississippi State bothered me. And adding that on top of the Kentucky game, that bothered me. I did pick Tennessee to go to the Final Four. I think that they're built to do well in ways that Rick Barnes' previous Tennessee teams in this decade have not been. they just weren't very good at scoring the last few years. They just weren't good offensive teams. I mean, I'm talking like really not good. I'm not talking about not good enough to win in March. I'm talking about not good. But they were great defensively, and that's why they earned high seeds and were able to win some tournament games. But they weren't able to be what they should have been. This team is built much better because of Dalton Knecht. When you have him as a first option, then Santiago Vescovi becomes a second perimeter option, a spot-up shooter more. Then Zakai Ziegler doesn't have to constantly create offense. He can just run the show and maybe every now and then attack, but he doesn't have to attack on every set. It's a much more effective offensive team. They still could be better, but they can win in this deal if they play as they did in that stretch where they took out Alabama and Auburn and South Carolina. That was the Tennessee that we want to see now.
It certainly is. And finally, in the West, North Carolina's the 1, Arizona's the 2, Mike. But at the odds board, Arizona's the favorite to win this region. And I think you think they're the favorite as well.
I do, but I will say they're the favorite. They are the favorite of what I would call the unreliables. That's what I call this region, because every single team is a team you can't trust. You don't trust a team that lost to the 3 worst teams in their league, even though they were the league champion. That's Arizona. You don't trust a team that goes out against one of its rivals, not its main rival, Carolina, that went out in a championship game against one of its rivals that had a meager season and still lost. I don't trust that team. I certainly don't trust Alabama because they defend even worse than Kentucky does. So a lot of unreliable teams here. Clemson's really good at losing important games. Got to give them credit for that. So that's who you have in the West, and that's why I think Arizona look, Mike, everybody who loves this game, who follows this game, wants Arizona, Carolina to play. We want to see the soap opera. I'm not big on that stuff, but in this case I am, because it was so obvious last year how much they didn't like playing together. And now there's a chance that they'll play against each other. Can't wait to see that.
There's always the one region, Mike, like when you're filling out brackets or you're thinking about this, that you think that could completely blow up. And like you said, unreliables here. I did a bracket in this region this morning. I had New Mexico playing Grand Canyon in the Elite Eight. Like, that's how, like, Mike, like, that's how I feel like every double-digit seed, aside from the 16, can win. Colgate can beat Baylor if they're hitting threes. Nevada can win. Charleston can win. Grand Canyon can win. This is going to be the funnest region, Mike. 20 seconds left.
I do agree with that. And I think Nevada will win. I don't think there's any can about that. Again, underseed, go with the underseed.
And 10 seconds, UConn wins it all?
That's what I got. I got them beating Tennessee. Less convinced of the Tennessee part than I am of the UConn part.
They just seem like, Mike, they're on that little level aside from everybody else right now as they head into the tournament. Mike DeCourcy, the Sporting News. Enjoy the tournament, Mike. We'll see you next week.
SportsGrid's going to have you covered for this NCAA tournament.
That's the Purdue that we know. When it's win or go home, they love to go home.
Tennessee's now in my phony club. They should all get together and drink green tea.
Furman's going to have a chance. That is a team I'm betting on right now.
We are feeling this. You are feeling this at home. The excitement and the atmosphere.
Only on SportsGrid.
You can worry about Kentucky's maturity. I get it. Are you making a good point about it? Absolutely. They're young. They're inexperienced. They're going to make a ton of mistakes. Sometimes you can worry about their defensive tenacity. But boy, they got shot creators and they got shot makers.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
Morehead State and Indiana State are two great mid-majors that look very dangerous. And Bama sent those teams into outer space.
You're looking at a guy that resurrects programs. Iona was down in the dumps till Pitino got there. Now you know who Iona is because they were making runs into the NCAA tournament. And now you take a look at St. John's down in the dumps here, resurrecting another New York City team here.
Only on SportsGrid. It's smarter to be on SportsGrid, your 24/7 sports wagering network. The early line.
Magical and historic season in Lincoln, Nebraska continues.
He is the best player in the NBA, but also in the biggest moments where the national media is watching.
Newswire.
Something that we have never seen happen before with one of the iconic coaches in the game.
Ferrall coast to coast.
The team covers. It's automatic. It's every time. Not sometimes. It's every time.
Game time decisions.
Luka is actually far more dangerous from three on the road this year than at home.
This game here tonight, you may want to consider taking as many points as humanly possible.
In-game live, prime time.
We got not one, but two coaches fired systems in place.
Sports Rage
This
Late
sort
Night.
of has letdown written all over it. It's going to be hard to match the emotion that they played with the other night.
It's smarter to be on SportsGrid.
And we are back, Ferrall, coast to coast, here on a Tuesday. Carver High and Joe Lisi in for Scotty on SportsGrid and SportsGrid Radio. Great to have everybody with us. One thing that I love about the tournament week also, Joe, is, you learn about teams and coaches that you don't normally spend a lot of time on. There are a lot of personalities around this league, around the country, etc. Nico Medved, he's the head coach for Colorado State. Getting ready for Virginia tonight. I like this guy. Talking about how the Mountain West is already disrespected. They got a quick turnaround.
Love it.
They got, where's Nico, the head coach of the Colorado State Rams?
Yeah, to be honest, I was really surprised how most of the Mountain West was seeded. I'm not the expert or the thing, but I think if you talk to the hundreds of people who do the bracketology, I think they really had all the Mountain West teams seeded higher than have. But you know what? That's fine. They always disrespect our league, and now it's time to go out and try to do something about it.
Was there a level on
your shoulder? Do you think that'll give you?
I don't know. I mean, I think it's just, first of all, you go through the day, you process right now, getting in and what that means. And then obviously we got to play quickly here. So I think there's just a lot of emotions going through you right now. But I think it's time to regroup, and then we got to focus on Virginia.
Looks like a stormtrooper with that jacket on. Look at him.
That's a nice guy. Nice Colorado State jacket there.
I'll tell you what, I'm laying it. I feel more confident now. I'm going to lay the 2.5. Let's beat down
give you
Tony
the numbers.
Bennett.
At the top of the hour, I'm going to give you both games here. Of course, Wagner and Howard is the first game. I think it's about 6:15, 6:30 p.m. East. And then Colorado State and Virginia is the nightcap, the first four in Dayton to kick off the NCAA tournament tonight. We've got a lot of NIT games tonight too, Joe. Some of your favorites, the teams that did show up for the NIT are going to be playing tonight. They can recruit and play at the same time, Joe. Ferrall coast to coast on a Tuesday. Carver High, Joe Lisi, Riscotti. We're back. Hour number 2 on the grid next.